Carver Capital Outlay Committee and the Carver Finance Committee to hear a proposal from the Carver Fire Department on protective equipment. I will call the meeting to order for the Capital Outlay Committee.
And I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order.
And I believe the only item on our agenda is to hear from the Fire Department about the request for updating their protective equipment. Chief?
Sure. Thank you very much. Some people I certainly recognize, and some people I've never worked with before. My name is Craig Weston. I'm the Chief of the Carver Fire Department. We have our Deputy Chief Eric Germain and Assistant Deputy Chief Jesse Boyle here with me tonight. And they'll be coming up in a few minutes to actually display our personal protective equipment. We want to give you a hands-on approach of what that is. A couple of you, I know one of the selectmen in the back of the room, have seen a presentation we did for the Board of Selectmen a few weeks ago. I know Chairman Clark has some chicken wings he's waiting for, so I know I am under a little time crunch.
I would never have my supper get in the way of something as important
Okay.
as...
When I see you looking at your watch, I'll know that we're doing okay. So this is a serious subject, and first of all, I want to applaud a little bit of this process. It's not, we don't normally meet with the Capital Outlay and the Finance Committee, and as a fire department, we try to be a very transparent organization, and I think it's come a long way when the two groups can come together to a meeting and try to solve a problem. So first of all, I want to thank you guys and girls for coming out on an evening, night, and trying to help us. So we have a problem in the fire department. We have our personal protective equipment, which is going to be our ensemble that we wear, both for structural fires and for wildfires, is expired. Structural gear has a 10-year shelf life. There's a tag inside the gear that has an expiration date, and it's reached that 10-year cycle. It's also very worn out. Most fire departments replace their structural and if they have wildfire gear every 5 years. We try to stretch ours to 10 years. That's always the way we've done it, and we've normally made it that far. So those are two main factors right there, is expired and it's very worn out, which we'll show you. The problem that we're having is cancer is a problem in the fire service, and it's becoming very well known. There was just an article on NBC Boston on TV a couple weeks ago where they did a story of actually chemicals that are used in the synthetic threads nowadays. And that's the vintage year of our gear that they suspect has created high risk of cancer within firefighters. The average cancer rate in firefighters is double that of an average person working in a normal job. And currently we have 4 firefighters right now that are battling the disease. We have 1 retired firefighter and 1 that unfortunately has passed. So we take it serious. I couldn't look you in the eye and tell you if they got it from battling fires in Carver. I would never do that, but it is a real thing. So it's something we have to take serious. Bottom line is we were going to go to the town meeting last year. It's been in our capital outlay program to replace our structural and wildfire gear prior to the 10-year mark. And that put it at 9 years at town meeting last year. However, as we do in the fire service, we try to apply for grants for about everything we can prior to going to town meeting. And FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, they offer a fire assistance grant. And we apply each year for different products. And we've been very successful. So far, we're over $1 million in grants that we've got as a fire department. So they will allow you to apply for personal protective equipment once your gear reaches 10 years old. Our original set, which is 10 years old, we purchased through a FEMA grant. That was a very minimal cost to the town. It was just a 5% match, and it all came from a fire assistance grant. So our plan was to do that again. So the decision was made, and we had some consultations with the town administrator and other folks, and we said, you know what, let's hold off a year on going to town meeting. Let's try for a FEMA grant. By the time we write the grant and submit it, our gear is going to hit the 10-year mark. We worked with a consultant at FEMA who thought that was the right approach. There's a professional grant writer in town. Her name is Irene Winkler. She's a super lady. She's helped us write a lot of our grants very successfully. She helped us, both Deputy Germain and Assistant Boyle attended a number of classes. and we spent hours writing the grant. We submitted it. We were notified, I believe I have it, I think it was in July, that we were unsuccessful. We failed. And, you know, we don't like to fail, but we did fail at that. So what do? Before we got to this point, you know, I had discussions with the town administrator, and I do want to applaud him in his foresight. The town was smart enough to set up contingency funds, reserve funds. And under Mr. Milanowski's leadership, we've set up a number of those funds in town. And one of them was for the capital outlay and capital reserve for equipment. And so I wouldn't even have been here if we didn't have this process set up ahead of time, and unfortunately we do. So one of the strategies was, well, let's go for the grant, let's give it everything we got, let's get the grant and not have to worry about it. If we don't get the grant, then we're going to have to approach capital outlay and possibly the finance committee to see if we can use monies out of that reserve fund. And that's why we're here, to talk about that and kind of go through some of that. So that's why we are. We're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't approach. If we didn't apply for the grant, we would have been asking taxpayers for the money, but we felt it prudent to ask for the grant. We tried for the grant, we weren't successful. So now we have gear that is 10 years old, that is expired. The problem we have is the Mass Fire Academy will not allow you to take accredited courses if your gear is over 10 years old, okay? So you're not allowed to take a certification for firefighter 1, 2, or any live fire trainings. We try to get them out of the way ahead of time before we got to this point, so we're in a pretty good spot. But NFPA requires you replace your gear every 10 years, and a grant, like I said, won't allow you to even apply till your gear is 10 years old. So there's numerous departments that have over 10 years. So that's kind of where we are right now. Before we go too much and we talk about PPE and personal protective gear, I really would like to ask the deputies to just come up and show you what we're talking about. And then I can explain, you know, where we're kind of going from here and what our ideas were. So that you guys have the show.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
So I guess the first thing we would talk about is the difference between the two sets of gear. The PPE that I'm holding and going to demonstrate for you is our what we call structural gear. This is what we wear to, I would say, about 98% of all the calls that you see us at.
Because I had to make my print bigger.
Gear like this.
Of course,
Jesse has our wildfire gear.
This is the Wildland gear. This is designed to be worn over the clothes that the firefighters are already wearing, much like that would be. It's not a traditional shirt and pants, but it's an overpant and an overcoat. As you can see, it's a much different type of fabric. We only wear it for wildfires.
From you, I watch you walk around with 11 by 17.
So I've unloaded all of my trinkets and tools and gadgets out of the coat, so at the end we can kind of pass around if anybody wants to see it. I don't want to insult anybody, but what I'd like to do is put it on briefly for you and show you. Again, this gear is 10 years old, and I would say that it is representative, although, you know, this coat has been patched over 10 times. It's been sent back to a factory representative company that repairs. So that coat and pants have been patched roughly 10 times.
I'm sorry we don't have any music to play while you're doing.
That's how you so the ensemble that the chief talked about, the items that we're looking for, boots, our boots and pants, although they come apart, they're separate items, we keep them attached so that we can get dressed quickly. So this is what we call a night hitch. Consists of boots, pants, and suspenders. And so normally what we would do is we would get a call and just step into the boots. And then up, pretty simple. So just the pants alone, if you look, again, everything's taken out of the pockets, but 10 years old, if you look closely, you can see patches all over the place. They show up as a little bit of a different color than the original set of gear because the patches are less than 10 years old, obviously. The pink, you know, obviously we go to different types of calls. The pink that you see there is battery acid, so that's starting to eat through the fabric. And again, this is probably on the verge of needing to go out for repair, but hopefully we're able to get the gear and we won't have to do that. The coat, same deal. So boots, pants, coat, gloves, attached, helmets, and what we call, again, all over 10 years old, and then the last piece in the structural portion is what we call a
We
hood.
didn't have a chance.
And again, when we talk about cancer in the fire service, this helps protect our ears from the heat and the, you know, the hot stuff. But it also, your face and head are the most vascular portions of your body. And it's proven that when firefighters work, they sweat profusely, and those pores open right up. And then all those carcinogens that are in the fire contaminants are absorbed in your pores. So these types of things obviously are very important, you know, when you talk about the total on something. I don't know if anyone wants to see, touch. It's a little stinky. It has been washed.
Looks like a lot more work than my husband's.
Spelled my name wrong, Deb.
Yeah, that was a white helmet. Again, all of these pieces put together make up the ensemble of what we use every day to protect us from the
Smells like a
bad
fire.
stuff.
Smells like a fire.
What I'd, again, if you look at the coat, I'll kind of take it off and show you, but you can see the patches all over. Again, representative of probably, this gear is probably a little more used than most, but I would say average. It's representative of what our firefighters are in right now for wear and tear and things of that nature.
And it's gotta get hooked on nails and, you know, I
Yes.
mean, it's gotta get all kinds of little tears and stuff like that, just go into a fire or a car,
Correct?
hooked on a piece of metal on a car.
Anything we go to, you know, this is our layer of protection right here. A little bit of a, kind of a education on fire gear, not to insult anybody, but it's made up of, at least this is, made up, this total set is made up of 3 layers. It's the outside shell, which is the, what we call khaki or brown. And then there's 2 inside layers. One of them is like a, we call it a face cloth fabric. And then it's actually a 2-piece, but it's not supposed to come apart. You can see that, again, the wear and tear, it's all ripped open by heat barrier and moisture barrier. So that's supposed to be one enclosed piece that's sewn together, and over the course of 10 years, and again, it's been repaired. Every piece of Velcro on this coat has been replaced, and so it's just the wear and tear. And people say all the time, well, you know, you're not the city of Boston, how many calls are you going on, how often do you wear your gear? I would say that, you know, for a department of our size and the amount of calls, over 400 calls, fire calls we go on every year, we train harder than any department you'll ever know. And I would say that a fair amount of our wear and tear comes from training as well. So that's kind of how we get to where we are. Again, normally we would send this right out and get it repaired. That moisture barrier and heat barrier are representative of failures of gear from across our department. And you know, it really comes down to a safety concern.
Do the gloves come with that?
So the gloves will be a
Part of
portion,
the-
yeah, they will be included in the overall purchase if we're successful. These are not my original 10-year-old gloves. Again, you're using your hands for most of your work, and the gloves really, really take a beating. So this is probably my 3rd or 4th pair of gloves in 10 years.
And the other equipment on the helmet all comes with the helmet, or
Correct.
the goggles and that type of stuff?
Correct, so the helmets that we would look to purchase would be identical to this, although it would be clean. Identical to this, all the innards, so all of this, what we call the ear flaps, all this protective device, what do you call it, the basket inside, all the felt, all that will be replaced brand new. Again, right now, as this is, it's, you know, it smells like our training building out there, but over the course of time in real fires, all of those carcinogens get inside. We talk a little bit about laundering the gear when we talk about cancer. The laundering of the gear is a big push now. Every time we go to a call that has any type of contaminants, to put it in the wash, obviously. And in our department, we're a little unique where not only, so in a career department, they come back from a call, whether they launder it or not, it goes in a locker and stays at the fire station. We ask our firefighters to take it home with them so that they're ready to go in a call. And so not only are they have it on their clothes, they put it in their vehicles, their families get in their vehicles, so washing it has really become a part of the culture of the fire service to try and get control of this cancer issue. So the more often you launder something, everybody knows you wash your shirt 100 times, it falls apart. So so those are the types of issues that all of this stacked on top of one another is kind of how we're headed in the fire service, as far as wear and tear on your gear.
Any other questions, Sarah? So I'll quickly go over the wildland gear. As you can see, the first obvious difference is it's a much brighter yellow color. The second difference is it's a much simpler in design. It's really only one layer. It's made out of a product called Nomex. This is a 6-ounce DuPont Nomex fabric, which resists fire. Although it's light, it doesn't breathe very well. It gets wet and it stays wet. So we're going to wear this during our wildland or brush fire incidents, of which are based on the weather. We can have several dozen per year. If it's going to be a rainy season, we don't have as many brush fires. But the potential still exists for large-scale brush fires. We do have one of the most combustible forests in town right here at the Miles Standard State Forest. We will also wear these for search and rescue calls that we may have on cranberry bog around the forest. One of the reasons being is that ensemble weighs close to 40 pounds. It creates a lot more opportunities for the firefighter to stay protected inside of a burning building. You don't need that type of protection out in the forest, obviously. So the Nomex material keeps us from burning, but it also gives the firefighters an opportunity to stay clean, working out in the woods, and working with mud, soot, clothesline, things of that nature. It keeps them from destroying their personal clothes, which they're typically wearing underneath. And it also provides an opportunity for us to be as professional as possible. Our firefighters are always required to be in their gear, which is an additional thing that I feel has an opportunity to wear our gear out a little bit more. You know, as Eric compared us to some other departments, they may not necessarily wear the gear at every call because they're wearing station gear. Whereas remember, we're called fire departments. So our firefighters are responding from their homes or from their jobs, and they're dressed just like you folks are now. And in order to look professional and to protect themselves and their clothes, we require them at all times to wear their gear. So we could potentially be wearing our gear a little bit more than an ordinary fire department. So this gear, it's not as custom fit as the gear that Eric just demonstrated. It really just comes in basic, medium, large sizes. We haven't seen as much wear with this gear as we did with the structural gear, but we've seen consistent amounts of torn knees. The zippers fail on them. The elastics don't hold their shape as much as before, and they get soiled. You know, this gear has been through quite a few fires. It's not going to get any cleaner than this. It's not going to carry the carcinogens in it to the degree that the structural gear will, but it's still important for it to be laundered. And again, it just wears all over time. The firefighters will be wearing the same helmet. I didn't bring mine, but they would be wearing the same exact helmet that Deputy Germain just demonstrated. It's a slightly different set of gloves. Again, we're not going to be exposed to the level of heat in a brush fire, so it's more of a simple single-layer leather glove, but all firefighters will still be equipped with one of those. This ensemble does not include boots. The fire boots themselves, with that style of boot, is not very conducive to walking around in a pine forest for hours on end, so we require our firefighters to wear traditional leather style work. Again, I can hand this one around. It's not nearly as heavy as the coat that Deputy Germain is wearing. Much simpler fabric. Again, although it looks light, it doesn't breathe well at all just due to its construction of the material called Nomex. Everyone wants to take a look at it. So fabrics have improved since this gear is, again, 10 years old. The fabrics have improved. The technology's improved a bit, so it's more breathable. They can get wet, but they repel the water, so they don't stay wet. Once this material gets wet, it stays wet for a while. And although you think, okay, fire, everything's dry, but the guys get absolutely soaked with the fire.
Jesse, is each fireman responsible for the care and the storage of his
So they're
equipment?
required to care for their gear. They're required to keep it laundered, and if they have any repairs that are needed or any wear items, they're required to report it to our safety officer, and they get the repairs. taken.
How many firemen are we talking about?
The chief will be able to talk to you about the total numbers of gear that we're talking about. We currently have 85 firefighters, but it's a little bit more complex than that, so I'll reflect that back to Chief West.
As of right now, we spend a lot of money each year on repairs, and we added it up. We've spent between, $45,000 and $50,000 in the last 4 years in repairing our gear, because it's just gotten into an age of being unworthy. Obviously we got, a safety issue. You could say we got a liability issue. It's my job to protect our firefighters. They're all your husbands, your wives. They have to go home at night. So that's why we're here. Just because our gear is expired doesn't mean we're going to stop doing that in the town of Carver. We're always going to do what we have to do, and we're not trying to back anyone into a corner here and make an ultimatum. We're trying to take care of a problem, be proactive about it, and start the process now. If we start the process now and we're allowed to order the gear, it's about a 4-month timeline before we get the gear finally back so the firefighters can wear it. So the sooner we can do that, obviously the sooner that we're all going to feel better and feel safer about our firefighters. Knowing that we were going to go through this process, one of the things we do in the fire department is we do a lot of things by committee. So I appointed a 12-person committee, and it was made up of officers and firefighters from each of the 3 stations. And they sat under the leadership of Deputy Jermaine as the chairperson, and they went through and they were charged with multiple tasks. And one of them was to evaluate our current gear, to see what condition it was. One of them was to meet with a series of vendors and see what the new products are and where we were going to head. And one of them was to develop a specification for the future, for 10 years looking out. And then finally, they had to make a recommendation to me by the end of August on a manufacturer, on the type of gear, on the product, and get pricing. So we completed that task. So our whole department has a say through that process of what jacket they like, what pocket they like, what boot they like. So they all get a say, because they all have a stake in it. So we completed that in terms, wanted to present that to the committee tonight. So we broke it down into 2 priorities that we were looking for funding for. And the first priority is to fund all our firefighters in structural gear. We also carry a certain number of sets on our apparatus. So a firefighter right now would take their gear home with them. They keep it with them as much as they can, but they're not always have it with them. They could be in their wife's car. They could be, jogging down the street and they're running by a station. So we keep a certain number of sets on the different engine companies in town. So we like to have that same style gear. That gear's expired too. We would purchase it to have enough for those sets. So we're looking at purchasing 108 sets of structural gear. That number will also include a few sets for a new recruit class that we're going to be trying to put through, and gives us a little room for expansion. When we hire a new firefighter now, if they weren't hired 10 years ago when we bought our gear originally, they basically get hand-me-downs. They come in, they go through our whole screening process. We can't hire by size or shape or anything like that. So they come in and we have to size them. So we take gear off our apparatus of all different sizes, and Jesse does a great job putting this program together. We lay it all out. We bring in every size boot we have, and they go down an assembly line and they try everything on. We take down their sizes. We have a spreadsheet we use. We write down everything: mask, gloves, hood, so forth, all the way down. And then Jesse spends a month and a half of trying to figure out where we're going to rob that from off the different trucks to make the sizing work. What gear expired we can't use anymore, so we rob from the trucks and try to make it work. So we've gotten very limited on what we're carrying on the apparatus, just to try to keep our current firefighters in the gear. So in that total, we've included enough to restock our trucks, give us a little bit of supply in the closet, because we never know what the person we're going to have size is going to be. So that was the first cost of $335,000 to fund that part of the project. The other priority we broke it down into is to replace the wildfire gear, which is, again, 10 years old. It's a much cheaper gear. It certainly doesn't have the cost that it would normally to the structural gear. That came in at $60,000, and you might say, well, maybe the numbers are a little different here. We only have so many wildfire apparatus, so that's a little different than the number of engines we have and rescues we have. So there's a little different number of those sets that we'd buy, but we'd still buy one set of wildfire gear for every firefighter. What we learned is if we hold off on the order, the vendors have already said that the price of both sets of PPE are going to go up a minimum of 12% if we wait till after April. As of January 1st, there's going to be a 10% price increase for a certain fabric across the board. Every vendor is going to face that same problem. And then they're going to have their normal 2.5% markup that they usually do each year. So again, we're working with the town administrator on how to fund it. The total package is $396,000 to fund the entire department for a 10-year cycle. And again, we wanted to work through the town administrator. I'm sure he has some thoughts on where we go from here. So, do you?
Good evening, everyone. So as a little background, beyond what Chief Weston has stated, back in 2014, town meeting and the Board of Selectmen and the Capital Outlay Committee, through the wisdom that they had, started to set up this capital reserve fund, which is identical to the Finance Committee reserve fund. And in that year, we put aside $100,000 for capital maintenance, repair, and replacements, expenditures to be approved by the Capital Outlay Committee and the Finance Committee. And we did it with both committees because, in essence, this is, the two boards together are acting as a mini town meeting in between our annual town meetings. The Finance Committee already has the power to do that with their reserve fund, and this set up a separate fund. Since that time, in 2015, we put in $75,000. In 2016, we added another $150,000. In 2017, we added another $100,000. And in 2018, we've added a $500,000. So since the fund was created, we have put in about $825,000. Since then, about $125,000 has been spent on capital projects. Both, one was for the elementary school to advance some of the design for that, and the second was due to a DEP issue with the middle high school to move forward with some of the wells that were done. That being said, is that we have about $700,000 in the fund right now, and this request is asking to use $396,000 of that. Now, my intent is that should you choose to approve that tonight, would be when we go to our annual town meeting on April, I think it's April 11th of 2019, is out of our free cash, which we're waiting to get certified from the state, is we would replenish this $396,000 back into the fund. I'm actually hoping to put a little bit more money back into the fund because it's important to have these so we can act like a business, so to speak. When something comes up, we don't have to wait for a whole year to go by for us to be able to do that. So I fully intend that there will be enough money in free cash to replenish this account. It'll take a town meeting vote to put that into back into the capital and debt stabilization back in April. And I think the last point that I just want to mention is, you know, one of the things that I've noticed over the years is how well the fire department goes through and tries to put together a gear package for people. But a lot of it's hand-me-downs, and they spend an awful lot of time going through trying to piece together uniforms, trying to piece together this protective gear. So with that's why we are requesting 90 units, and even though you've heard we have about 85 people in the department, we are requesting an extra 5 just to have that supply, plus the equipment on the vehicles. Now, the reason why I'm recommending that we do both the main gear and also the brush gear is, as Chief Weston has mentioned, that there is going to be a big fabric increase coming on 1/1/19. So since we have the money available, my belief is that let's go out, we're getting economies of scale by buying it all together because we're getting a discount for buying this amount of volume. You know, most full-time fire departments don't buy this amount of equipment because they don't have this many people. This is one of the things the Call Fire Department does have, is they have so many people that, you know, we're close to a you know, a small city when it looks to the number of fire people that are there. So in any case, so it's my recommendation, as I've been working with the chief and the 2 deputies, is that we move forward with the 396 with the intention of following at the annual town meeting and moving that money back into the capital and debt stabilization fund to replenish it. And my last point that I'll say is that although you used the words that the chief said they failed, I don't look at it as they failed. They put in a valiant effort in putting together a grant application year over year, and they worked hard to do this. The problem we had is that, one is the equipment still was not expired when the grant application went in, and second is there were just a lot of other communities that had 15 and 20-year-old gear that they were using, and guess what? Just like all of you, you'd prioritize, and the oldest would get funded first. And that's what happened, and that's where the money got eaten up pretty quickly. So with that, with both committees, again, my recommendation is to support the fire department in this request of the $396,000.
All right, as I'll look for questions from either board, I will just mention that this presentation was made to the Board of Selectmen at our last meeting, and our board did vote to recommend to these committees that we support this request. So questions from anyone on either board?
Do we have to go through?
Pull the mic up just so.
Do we have to go through 3 bids on this, or no?
No, so the way we,
all bid.
Deputy Jermaine worked very hard on the pricing for this gear. And so virtually everything's going to be bought off a state contract at a lower price than the state contract, but the vendors are on the state contract. Do we have one item we have to get 3 quotes for, or was that not anymore?
No, it's okay.
I think everything is off a state contract now.
Okay. And they're both uniforms are from the single source?
No, they're from different vendors.
Two
Different vendors.
different
But
vendors?
boots, structural coat, hoods, gloves, and pants are from one vendor. Brush gear is from a different vendor. There might be a couple pieces from some other vendors. We shopped the best we could to get the best discount we could.
And you just take the sizes, you measure everybody, and you put in for so many different sizes?
So one of our requests was, there were 2 requests in finalizing with the vendors. First, we tried to get the best volume discount we could, and by going over the 100 set mark, that gave us another discount. We also approached the vendor, which they agreed to, for a 5-year warranty, which is pretty much unheard of in our industry. So they have agreed to that. And the final thing they agreed to is they're going to bring multiple people out for the sizing. You can imagine how fun it's going to be to size 85 people. So through the deputies, they have charts already made up, and it'll be very organized, and the vendors will have people there that'll be, be custom fit. But we have an issue of trying to get the wildfire vendor there the same night as, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it work.
Eric only wants to go through one size.
You'll see why.
Well, my first reaction to what's been presented is, it is a financial issue, of course, but it's much more than that, I think. It's a human issue in terms of what kind of people we want to work for us, but also our responsibility to provide for them the best kind of equipment to do the job that they do. Captain Craig mentioned about the cancer issue, which is one of the issues. But I think in our environment, in being in forests and wooden homes and such as that, the risk is somewhat different than they'd find in an industrial area in the cities. So I don't know. I think we have a responsibility to provide the best kind of equipment we can to make it possible for them to be effective in their work, and also to provide the kind of security that we look for in them and in our community.
You mentioned it'd be a 4-month turnaround, probably approximately,
yeah.
to get that. How far in arrears is that going to put us on our training in getting the firefighters?
So we have right now, and the deputy can correct me, I think we have 6. We have 6 that have completed the written exam and a non-fire practical for firefighter 1-2 certification. So those 6, as soon as they get the new gear, will be allowed to take the live fire certification. Other than that, our department is heavily certified.
Okay.
But those 6 are waiting. Our gear expired, and we just couldn't find gear enough for them to keep going. So they're all active firefighters. They're
Right,
protecting the community. There's no issue there. We just pride ourselves on certifications, and we just want to finish that process.
And you can't borrow uniforms from another company, or from another,
We
Yeah.
borrow a lot of things.
to finish their training, I mean.
Yeah, no,
That'd be an
no,
advantage.
absolutely we can, but they need them too, so it is not like there's a huge supply out there, so we try to mix
for
and
those
match the
6
best we
people,
can.
yeah. Okay.
I see John's crunching numbers there. So.
No, I'm just looking, so if we wait until town meeting, there's a chance we've got a 12% increase, so it costs us another $50,000 for this gear.
Approximately, yeah.
And what was the increase in January? You mentioned something.
Every year, a manufacturer does a 2 to 2.5% increase, a standard practice, so. But again, the larger increase was, and maybe the deputy can explain that if he wants to, but.
Well, there's so when we were in the middle of our committee meetings, we had vendors coming in. We call them the big 3, which is Globe, Janesville, Lion, which we have here in Morning Pride. And all 3 of those manufacturers had issues getting the representatives from the factories to us, which normally they would, because they have the selling features, they know the material. There was a large meeting going on in Ohio about this particular Kevlar twill or some type of thread that is, the company that manufactures it says it's going up by X amount. And they were all out there at a big powwow trying to figure out what that was gonna do to their bottom line, how much of an increase they're gonna have to charge for gear going forward in January. So it was all of those representatives were tied up in other parts of the country, excuse me, in Ohio. Couldn't come see us because it was such a big deal to them. So that's what the vendors are telling us about an increase in January. That's what they're prepared to, that's what they're telling us, and they're gonna move forward with it.
So is there a plan going forward if this gets granted that, 10 years, are we looking at another, $500,000 purchase, or is there more like a staggered approach so that we're retiring equipment and not having these big hits?
So that's a great question. I mean, running the fire department, 3 stations, number of apparatus we have, every year there's money that needs to go into capital equipment, whether it's fire trucks, whether it's gear. There's always something. And that's why we always provide the town with a 10-year capital outlay plan that outlines it, so you guys can prepare financially. With gear, it was part of our capital plan. We just waited 1 year more than we wanted to. So normally in 10 years, or 9 years, you will see PPE again in a plan. We are going to look at the approach of trying to stagger it every 5 years. We're going to look at that. I'm not going to tell you we're going to do that because we want to study it. Any career departments, they would buy 2 sets of gear for their firefighters. While one's being laundered, they put on another set, and that's how they do it. They always get 2 sets of gear. Our firefighters, we provide 1 set, and that's worked out okay. And we're going to continue that practice. But we're going to look at 5 years from now, do we stagger? Do we buy half the department again? And then so we get into a rotating basis, so all our gears, the maximum is 5 years old. But I wouldn't be prepared to tell you how we're going to do that, at this time.
What's been the practice? Has it been every 10 years essentially during your career?
Well, the gears we had before this, we actually went over the 10 years. The gear before that was 15 years. It was really old. But they just, within this last 8 years, they started putting expiration dates on. And that's where everyone has picked that up. That's why I tell you, tonight we're not going to stop putting out emergencies in Carver. That won't play into effect. But when you start stamp dating things and all of a sudden lawyers get involved and liabilities start happening and someone gets hurt, we got some real problems. And when the Mass Fire Academy is not accepting anyone because of that, and bottom line, our gear is worn out faster than it used to. And we're training harder. We just train and work harder than we did 10, 12 years ago. And I can say that I was there. I've been on the department 30 years, so I know what we used to do and very proud of where we came from. But we do train harder now, and it takes a toll on our gear.
Is this a change in the academy over the last 5, 10 years?
Yes,
With that requirement?
That never used to be enforced. No, and now it's strictly enforced.
And basically, it's a liability issue that if something happens
They don't
to
want to
somebody
accept it.
Yep. Okay.
Correct.
Personally, I think waiting till town meeting just puts this thing off from April, and then you gotta wait 4 more months so that we're in the next.
Hey, Alan, I need to have you talk right into the mic.
Well, I'm sorry. Is this working? I just don't want to see us wait till town meeting. That's, you guys, while we're all running out of our burning houses, you guys are crazy enough to run into them. The least we can do is give you the gear and equipment that you need to have to do that and come out of there in one piece. And especially in today's time where you don't know what's in these houses, a lot of this new material that you're building with now has got plastics in it and so forth and so on. Anyone that's lit a styrofoam cup on fire and you see all the little black squigglies that take off, there's a lot more of this stuff in everybody's house now. Everything is plastic. Plastic is petroleum. So you get that toxic, bad stuff, and, you guys need to be protected. I think you run an exemplary fire department. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Unlike you call it a full-time fire department, if you will, where you'd have the gear in a locker at the station because the guys that are on duty are the guys that are on duty. We have guys that are jumping out of bed and running to a fire. We have guys that are leaving a job and running to a fire. We have guys that are out shopping with their wives and their family and they're running to a fire. Sometimes bringing their family with them. as they pull the gear out of their trunk and they put it on. And I'm willing to bet money that in these families, some child is wanting to be like daddy and trying on the gear or putting on the helmet. So, yeah, it's real important that the quality of the equipment be up to snuff, and that the protection that's built into that equipment be up to snuff. That's a real big deal. That's just my 2 cents worth, but that's where I'm coming from with it.
Thank you.
That's it.
As a wife of a full-time firefighter and his department, he has different stations, and at times he has to go to a station he's not assigned to. He will actually stop at the station he's assigned to drop off his gear because he does not want it in his vehicle. And for you guys to put this equipment in your vehicles is huge, and the town should give new gear for our firefighters who protect us. We should do the same and protect them as much as we can.
I think it's important to me, the idea that we'd have a plan to replenish the capital account with free cash, that it's prioritized, that this get rebuilt just for emergencies of this nature at town meeting. So I would like that to be a precondition, at least certainly the plan. We can't predict everything. And then I'll just say, and I know I may be a broken record on this, that talk about full-time departments. We essentially, with our call department, get full-time results with a call fire department. You want to compare local communities' response times, successes at fires, certifications of the firefighters, we're just down the list. The protection we get from our fire department and the cost at which the town procures their service is just exceptional. And I've talked to firefighters from other towns that just have the utmost respect for us, and oftentimes there's a little tension between union towns and call fire departments, and these guys, not even grudgingly, just applaud what we've done. The training center, they're just blown away by. So I would recommend to both committees that we support this. And I guess at this point, if there's no one else that wants to speak, I'll ask if someone wants to make a motion.
I think Capital Outlay has to deal with this first.
Okay. Capital Outlay want to make a motion on this request?
Yeah, I would move that we approve the recommendation and the request that is being offered by the fire department.
Is there a second?
A second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous.
I make a motion to approve the request of the fire department for $396.30.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second, a third, and if I could, I'd make it a fourth. All right. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Go order your stuff.
Discussion.
I asked for that. Any further discussion? Play it back. This is the whole reason why I have to record this now, and this is why I have Mary Ann taking the notes. Mary Ann, put in there that I asked for discussion. Can you put that in capital letters? This will be something I have to live with forever.
Chief, did you want to add anything?
Just as the chief of the department, I sincerely thank each one of you for taking the time to listen to
It's
us.
us that thank you,
well,
Chief.
No, this town always supports our firefighters, both men and women, and we know that, and we try to give back as much as we can. So thank you very, very much.
I'll be over tomorrow to go for a ride in the fire engine.
And you think he's kidding, but he's not. He will be over for a ride in the fire engine.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Can't yet. I have some further business. You can adjourn your capital outlay if you'd like.
Sure. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it.
The only thing I have is that the last time that Mary Ann gave me a bill, I signed off on it for payment, and I presented it to Elaine Weston. Elaine said, "Did you have the authorization of your committee to do that?" And I said, "No, but it's a part of our budget." She said, "It'd be good if you did." So I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve $75 for,
No, it's not that. I'd
Or-
actually prefer a motion that authorizes the chairman or the vice chairman in his absence to authorize the bill.
you want to make that?
I make that motion. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
There's no limit on.
It's just Mary Ann's bill.
Can you just say the motion again? 'Cause
The motion is that the chairman or the vice chairman in the chairman's absence approves the bill for the, presented to them for the minutes, for the recording secretary for the minutes. And that's been made and seconded. Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
seconded by,
Made by George, seconded by
okay.
John. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded.
Discussed?
Discussed.
Aye.
Favor? We're out.
Thanks, John.